Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our next episode of Unprocessed Sugar. I appreciate you joining us. Today, we have the privilege of having Dr. Tracy Gapin join us, and I'll let him tell us a little bit about his background and how he got to where he is today. But if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. It helps us grow our numbers, which allows us to bring more content to more viewers. We really appreciate it. If you do happen to go on the website and you subscribe on there, you'll actually get an email notifying you whenever another episode gets posted on YouTube. But we really appreciate it, and thank you for joining us. I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. I know I did as I was preparing for this. So Dr. Tracy Gapin is a doctor here in Sarasota, but give us a little bit of your background, and I know you do something very different than what you did for about 23 years.
I think do, yeah. Thanks so much. Glad to be here with you today.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah, so I like to say I'm a recovering urologist now.
I love it.
So I spent 23 years in traditional medicine in urology practice here in Sarasota, Florida. Busy practice doing robotic surgery. Launched the robotics program here in 2006.
I think you were the first one to use the Da Vinci, weren't you?
Did the first couple cases here, and really grew a big surgical practice here, and I was doing great. I was very happy until I wasn't.
Right.
So I hit a wall about halfway through my career, like a lot of other doctors, where I wake up one day and I'm 30 pounds overweight.
Right.
I'm miserable. I'm stressed out. I'm not sleeping well. I'm not taking care of myself. You know, I've neglected myself for the sake of my practice. And you know, traditional medical care, our system is built on this idea that doctors have to grind harder, work harder, self-sacrifice, and then that's really like a badge of honor. And
it really is.
Yeah, we all fall for that.
We really do. You know, the more I work, the better I am. And if I work more than you, I'm better than you.
Yeah, you know, I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of concept.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I hit a similar point where I realized that's a big old lie.
Yep.
Big
Exactly.
Old lie. But I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wake up one day and I'm miserable. I'm unhappy in my career. I'm unhappy in my life. And I'm married now. We have a baby on the way. And I realize that something has to change.
Yeah.
And so I go to a local doctor here in town, concierge doctor, for my first physical ever. I'm 40 years old.
First physical ever.
First physical ever. And doctors are guilty of this, right? We don't see a doctor ourselves because we're invincible. And less time, I got to focus on my own patients.
Exactly.
On time for myself.
Exactly.
And so it was a very vulnerable experience. I remember sitting on that exam table. You know, I was so used to being on the other side of that interchange.
Right.
But now I'm suddenly the patient. I'm on this exam table. I'm sitting there with a thin little paper gown, barely covering some very important real estate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was an eye-opening experience that I had to really face my own mortality and realize that something had to change.
Right.
What changed everything for me was that moment, though, because this doctor really didn't have any great answers other than I probably need to take a statin.
Of course.
Right?
Right.
That's the answer to everything, right?
Right, exactly.
And you know, lose weight, exercise, eat healthy, that kind of, you know, generic recommendation, but no real clear guidance.
Right.
Just lose weight and take a statin. So I go home that day, and I was really confused, scared. And I knew something had to change, but I had to really humbly recognize that here I was. I'm this urologist, this men's health expert, and I had no idea either.
Right.
I didn't know what the hell to do. You know, they say eat healthy. Was it really? Yeah, you know, eat healthy and exercise. But
because we got a ton of education on nutrition in medical school and training, right? Just a ton.
Right. Dripping with sarcasm. Exactly.
Exactly.
You get nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Around nutrition, around fitness, around stress, around sleep, around environmental toxins, around community, around relationships. None of that.
None of it.
It's all find the diagnosis and here's the drug. Right? Diagnosis, drug, diagnosis, drug. And that's really what we do.
If I may jump in, I read something just recently that it really succinctly ties it together. The regular medicine, Western medicine, talks about what's wrong.
Yep.
So this is what's wrong, so take this pill. Your cholesterol is high, take this pill. They don't address the why is it wrong, which is the root cause.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what I'm learning is where we need to be focusing our attention. Okay, so here you are with this crossroads in life. What do I do? Where do I go from now?
Yeah, I gotta turn my health around, and I realized that from a career standpoint, something's got to change because I'm just not happy. I can't imagine doing what I was doing for the rest of my life. Right. And so I find this entire new world of precision medicine. Okay, now what does that mean? I started with a certification program in learning how to read genetics, so I can take a cheek swab of someone and look at genetics that help guide what should I eat, what should I not eat, what supplements do I need, how do I clear toxins better, how do I get my my gut to work better, how can I sleep better, what exercise is right for me, and all these genetic insights I learned how you can really personalize lifestyle medicine, personalize what to do. From a behavior perspective, and I suddenly realized, holy cow, there's a lot more to it than I was ever taught in medical school.
Right. You didn't even know, at least for me, I didn't know and still don't know what I don't know.
That's the problem.
Right.
We're not taught the stuff.
Right.
I then realized that I need help with hormones because I had no idea how to prescribe hormones. Here I am as a
urologist,
your men's health expert, urologist, and they don't actually teach us how to prescribe hormones.
Isn't that crazy?
And so we had standard dosing for testosterone, which I've since learned was not even close to what you're supposed to do. And so I went through training to learn how to prescribe hormones. That got me into functional medicine. So now functional medicine is an entirely new field that ties into what we do now of understanding what you just mentioned, root cause. Right. So when we think of things like we talked offset before we started recording here about stress and how sleep can affect that and how that can affect the gut, and gut health drives systemic inflammation, and it's all interconnected. And unless you can address that underlying root cause, you're not going to fix the problem.
Spit in circles.
Yeah, right. So I got trained in functional medicine, and then I got trained in peptides, and then I was able to put all this stuff together that I was learning, and you don't ever stop learning, right? I'm still learning to this day. I'm still learning, and it never. And you have to have
part of the fun.
It's incredibly fun, right? And it's this mindset around abundance and around things are constantly evolving and growing and changing, and how can I use this?
Right.
I also found this amazing new perspective around our approach to healthcare. In that, we are taught in medical school that the only real evidence is a randomized, placebo-controlled 10-year trial. And unless you've done that, there's no good. There's no evidence to it. No data to support it. On the other end, there's this concept of N of 1, N equals 1, which really means individualized, an experiment on one person at a time, right? And there's a spectrum of everything that we do that goes somewhere in that range from evidence-based randomized placebo-controlled trials to N of 1 medicine. And I now recognize that we need to find where is our line in the sand. And traditional medicine is so far to that one extreme that it allows no opportunity for example, peptides. Peptides, I've been prescribing them now after going through training for about 8-9 years now. And they're incredible. And they're finally gaining widespread acceptance because people are realizing that, hey, we don't need a 10-year trial to recognize that there's real basic science and proof behind some of these good peptides. Right?
Because the peptides are basically giving your body what it already makes. It just needs some help.
That's right.
I find it interesting that all the different websites you go to buy peptides, they all say the same thing, not for human consumption. And that's just because they haven't put all that you just mentioned, the double-blind randomized controlled studies, and they may never do those because the money's not necessarily behind it. But yeah, I just find that interesting. But they've gained significant traction lately, So that's kind of how you ended up getting here. So to kind of give our audience a little bit about what we're hoping to touch, what we will touch on today is some of what you just talked about. Why are we all so sick? It is a chronic health epidemic. And how do lifestyle choices tie into that, which are huge? And how does our, for lack of a better way to put it, our broken healthcare system kind of perpetuate this whole problem? So you kind of mentioned some of them. What would you say are some of the key drivers behind the chronic health epidemic?
Yeah, a lot.
Right.
We can go through nutrition, lack of fitness, sedentary lifestyle, high stress, systemic inflammation. All these issues are really affecting us. So let's briefly touch on a few of those. Number one is nutrition. If you look at some of the foods that we eat today and compare them to back in the 80s when we were kids, the ingredients are night and day different.
Terrible.
Right? We recognize that we are living in this soup of what I call endocrine disruption.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And for the listener, that's really just chemicals, toxins in our environment that disrupt endocrine hormone function.
Right.
And that's leading to things like obesity, autoimmune disease, breakdown in hormone production that can affect energy, cognitive function, weight gain. It can cause things like ADD and depression and anxiety and precocious puberty and cancers.
Really, across the board.
Across the board, chronic disease. Every chronic disease you can imagine is in some way tied to endocrine disruptors, chemicals in our daily life. So what do I mean by that? Like examples. So our drinking water. If you take water from the tap, studies show that it is loaded, it is tainted with synthetic chemicals that our water treatment plants cannot adequately filter.
Okay.
The biggest one is estrogen.
Really?
So women's birth control, synthetic estrogen.
Wow. In our drinking water.
In our drinking water at high levels. You can look at studies that show that it is at massively detectable levels, and our treatment plants can't clear it. So unless you're filtering your water, we're talking carbon block, reverse osmosis filters, you are taking in these estrogenic chemicals every day without even realizing it in your drinking water.
And that's just one.
That's just one. You can look at our food.
Crazy,
so our food, chemicals like you've heard of glyphosate, most common, herbicide. The second one is atrazine. So a lot of corn products are full of atrazine, chemical that's causing disruption in testosterone production. It causes inflammation, causes autoimmune disease, etc. You could look in plastics. So a lot of our foods are stored in plastics that are made from BPA or phthalates, which we know that these chemicals, again, disrupt hormone production and function. We can look at our personal care products. This is the big one. So things like laundry detergent, things like shampoo and soap and deodorant and sunscreen. All of these products that we use on a daily basis, we are either ingesting them or absorbing them through our skin, and we don't even realize it, and it's happening every single day. And it compounds upon itself.
So everything you just said leads me to think that we have a birth rate problem in this country. A fertility problem, and it has to be this. I mean, what else could it be?
Powerful studies have shown that male fertility, my focus is obviously men's health, and particular male fertility is down 50% over 20 years. 50% decline in sperm function and sperm count.
That's absolutely insane.
It is.
And we'll probably get into some, we'll get into some of this a little later, but to me, I think one of the biggest is our food source. It's absolutely our food source, not just the ultra processed. You can eliminate that, but what's on our vegetables, what's on our different products we're eating, and I think it's criminal, really, to be honest with you. We had Nora Clemens on recently, and we talked about fats and oils, and trans fats, bad, no matter what. Okay, great. As long as you have less than 0.5 grams per serving, you can put on your label, no trans fat. If it's bad, it's bad. Don't put it in there. So it's really criminal. I know I'm a little off topic there. So those are some of the big drivers behind this chronic health epidemic. That's a long list of stuff. I mean, it's not just a little simple quick fix. Right?
And that's just the drinking water, the food. We can go into all of the oils, all the inflammatory oils. When you go out to eat, a lot of people eat at restaurants. They're cooking in these pro-inflammatory oils. You can look at the processed sugar, refined carbs that we are ingesting at a very high level as well.
Let me ask you about the ultra processed or the processed foods. And their role in the chronic health epidemic. All right, for our audience to hear, okay, I keep hearing ultra-processed food, why? I mean, I know a big reason is because of the high fructose corn syrup and the sucralose, but can you add to that? If they were to want to take something home that really drives it home of why they should stay away from these foods?
A lot of it is that it's hyper palatable, it's easy to eat. So like power bars, the most common culprit I hear now is people talk about all these power bars, but they're loaded with chemicals. They're high in processed carbohydrates. So I want to be clear that there are different types of carbs. So carbs aren't bad necessarily, and in fact, sometimes keto diets may, based on your genetics, be the wrong diet for you. You may need carbs, but carbs like broccoli and quinoa and sweet potatoes and other healthy carbs are very different than the carbs you see in packaged products like that. And these other refined carbs are high in calorie. They're high sugar content, and what they do is they stimulate you to be hungry and want more. And they don't actually provide any real nutritious value. And so you keep eating more and more. And so it is a slippery slope.
Big time,
And so I think it's quality. I'm sorry, excuse me. Less is quantity. Quantity of calories certainly matter, but it's more the quality that we're losing sight of as well.
You were talking about the ultra processed foods, and I'm sure you know this, that the big tobacco companies bought the food companies. And when they got spanked, when they were taken to court, 30 years ago, they had to pivot. So and this has all been shown in their corporate documents. So they take their scientists and tell them, what you did with tobacco, do that with food. Make it addictive, less filling, and they were successful.
Yeah.
Very successful at it. And,
Yeah.
you know, one of the two most purchased items with SNAP, with the food stamps, are sodas and candy.
Yep.
As it becomes
Pure sugar.
Yeah, right,
Yep.
right. Okay.
Yep.
So, so lifestyle choices. We hear that. What are lifestyle choices, first of all?
Yeah. So let's touch on sleep. So
Yeah,
a big
right.
one that doesn't get enough attention is sleep. And you and I talked off camera
right.
about the impact of
Right,
poor quality sleep. And we all tend to minimize it. Like, yeah, I only get 3 or 4 or 5 hours of sleep. It's okay, not a big deal. But it drives everything.
Right.
So, and there's quantity of sleep and quality. I would argue that the quality is much more important. So,
Okay.
what do I mean by this? And Matt Walker's a great resource on this,
Great,
by the way. He's
yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
His book's on the shelf here.
Yeah,
somewhere.
he's fantastic.
Yeah.
I met him at an event in
Oh,
Dubai
really?
last month.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's great. So
What we're talking about real quickly, Matt Walker, he's from
PhD
England.
from-
Yeah, he's awesome. I think he's probably one of the most renowned experts on sleep in the world. His book's on the shelf, maybe back here, but it's Why We Sleep or something. Excellent, excellent. I would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talk about quantity, and most people need at least 7, if not 8 hours of sleep, quantity-wise. But
Right.
more important than that is actually quality as well. And we can look at the stages of sleep. So, you go from awake to REM sleep, which is where you're arousable to sound, you're dreaming, and that has very specific recovery, repair aspects of that stage of sleep, REM sleep. And then you go into non-REM sleep, and non-REM sleep has light sleep and deep sleep. And I think of it like just going just below the surface of the water, going a little bit deeper, and then going really deep under the water. And that deep sleep is where you get the real benefits of sleep.
Right, okay.
And then you come back up to REM, and you go back down again. You do that about 4 times a night, 4 dives, if you will, per night.
Okay.
And the first 2 dives, which is the first half of the night, is where you get all your deep sleep. And the second half of the night is where you tend to get all your REM sleep. Okay. So in general, quality, deep in the first half, REM in the second half. What happens is a lot of people don't get one or the other. And when you don't get deep sleep and or you don't get REM sleep, you're missing the key aspects of sleep as it relates to repair, as it relates to recovery, as it relates to improving hormone production, and when it comes to, the lymphatic system, which is how the brain cleanses itself and restores itself, and that system happens typically when you're sleeping. And so if you don't get this good quality sleep, none of those things happen.
Right.
And so I have so many clients who, different topic but related here, we will do blood sugar monitoring. Okay, track their blood sugar levels, whole separate topic, but the reason I'm bringing it up here is they'll wake up and their blood sugar when they wake up is high.
Okay.
They haven't eaten in 12 hours, so why the heck would
why
their
is
blood
it,
sugar
right?
be so high? The answer is one word: cortisol.
My nemesis.
Your nemesis.
Yeah, right.
And why the heck would cortisol be so high?
In the middle of the night when you're sleeping.
And well, the trigger is poor sleep. Poor sleep drives our nervous system
Right.
and raises cortisol. So one of the most common causes of people who have high cortisol and they're looking for brain tumors and this and that is
right.
actually stress from poor sleep.
And then your cortisol's high, and then you don't sleep right, and it's just
It becomes a vicious
Yeah, it
cycle,
really does,
and
right.
now it also affects the gut lining. So the microbiome is disrupted by
right.
this excess cortisol.
Right.
Breaks down the gut wall. You now have what's called leaky gut can result from that,
Right.
and now you have an inflammatory immune response, and it becomes this ugly vicious cycle of inflammation, high cortisol, low hormones, and everything kind of starts to circle.
Okay.
And all because of the poor quality sleep.
Wow. So are you using a CGM, continuous glucose monitor, on patients to monitor
We
that
do that a lot for
time?
tracking blood sugar.
Yeah,
We track
okay.
sleep quality. We'll track body composition, and this is
Right.
where the tracking I think is so valuable.
Right.
But going back to what are we doing that's making us sick? A big part of it is just simply not prioritizing sleep and recognizing how important it is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Andrew Huberman, and I was watching a little video clip of his about nootropics, which are help cognitive function, for anybody who may not know that. But he said, what is the best nootropic for your physical well-being? Sleep. What's the best nootropic for your gut well-being? Sleep.
Yep.
And it was bop, 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 bop. It was sleep for everything.
Yeah.
Really, it was really
Yeah.
such an easy thing, and so
Yeah.
it's so simple to do.
Yeah.
But especially you and I as physicians and surgeons, we were raised in a culture of, I'll sleep when I'm dead, and he who works the most wins, and it's just a big fat lie, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It really is. And
Yeah.
well, that's good stuff. Okay, so what if you had to pick? I know it may be hard to do. Just one lifestyle hack. I think I know what the answer will be. Just one that would make the biggest impact.
Yeah. So
what would you say?
I'm
that
going to
would
stay
be?
right here with sleep for a moment.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
going
what
to
I'm
say
thinking, right?
the
Yeah.
answer is to actually have an incredibly consistent sleep time. So what that means is your body has a circadian rhythm, and it needs to have consistency, and has to know, your body has to know basically when it's time to go to sleep.
Right.
And so one of the most powerful things you can do is to set a time that is your absolute bedtime every single night. That's it. And that, set an alarm on your phone if you have to, do what you have to do, but know that that's the time.
That's it.
And people will, I'm going to make it midnight, and if you know you have to wake up at 5:30, your bedtime can't be midnight. So what I like to do, simple tool here, is just simply count 8 hours prior to when you have to wake up. So if you have to wake up at 6, you got to be asleep by 10, which means you got to be in bed by 9:30. Because it takes time to kind of get settled and stuff.
Exactly.
And I like to give people 2 things to not do, 5 things to do in the 2 hours leading up to that bedtime. Okay.
Gotcha.
So 2 hours, not two things. Excuse me. The 2 things to do not in the 2 hours before bed.
Gotcha.
No tablets.
Right.
That means no
blue
blue light, no tablet, no phone, no laptop. And even if you're watching TV, there's a little bit of blue light. So blue light blocking glasses can be helpful for the TV.
Right.
But no electronic devices during those 2 hours.
Right.
And the second thing is no food or water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Take a sip if you need for pills, but otherwise you don't want to eat or drink anything if at all possible. Okay, so avoid those 2 things.
Gotcha.
The 5 things to do
in
those couple hours before bedtime.
I'm mentally taking notes.
Yeah, 5 and 2. 5 things to do: read. Paper book, best time to read.
Book,
Yeah, paper book, not a Kindle. Something that's preferably not business, whatever your business is. Something that's
gets you thinking.
Something else. Even
a romance novel.
if you choose. Journal, great time to. I'm a massive believer in the power of gratitude, and so documenting what you're grateful for, what you've accomplished that day, what you want to accomplish tomorrow, some goal setting. Journaling is a great time for that. Meditation, mindfulness, breathing exercise is incredibly powerful to calm the body and mind. Sauna. People always talk about, when should I be doing sauna? At bedtime is a perfect time because it relaxes the body. Okay. And then finally, sex.
Yeah.
Okay. Intimacy with your partner, great way to calm the body and the mind for sex. And so 5 great things you can do in those 2 hours. Do not do them all at the same time. Super awkward. I joke.
Honey, hold on a second. I'm just taking notes.
But those are the things you can do, and simply a schedule. You just have to create consistency, establish that in your life, that you set your bedtime 2 hours prior. That's what you do in those 5.
Oh, that's awesome stuff. And I find, especially with the first 2, what to not do, it's a dramatic difference for me. The screen time's big, and the water, I'm up all night having to go to the bathroom. But those are awesome. Those are really, really good things. And how about exercise? You're not supposed to exercise within a certain amount of time before you want to be asleep?
In general, I tend to recommend exercise in the morning.
Right.
For most people, they do better in the morning, and it's a great way to get the day started. And what exercise does do is raise your cortisol level, right? Short term, but it's going to disrupt your sleep if you exercise too close. So in general, I don't recommend evening time. If you are going to exercise, make it as far away from bedtime as possible if you can. Typically a morning type of activity. Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah. So we kind of hit on a lot of this, but I'm just thinking to myself, okay, we have all this chronic stress. And is there any more that we can add to what you've already said about how does chronic stress erode my well-being?
Thank you for bringing this up. And most high-performing, successful, driven leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, doctors, anyone who really runs a business, successful entrepreneur or businessman or woman, says, I'm not stressed. It's not me. I'm fine. I have stress in my life, but I'm okay. It doesn't. Nonsense, BS.
It is, and I used to say, I eat stress for breakfast.
Exactly. It crushes all of us, and it's just a matter of acknowledging it and then accepting what can I do about it, right? And so we cannot get rid of stress, right? There's always going to be financial challenges, kids, life, things come up. Something's always going to be happening. Right. But the question is, how do you respond to it? How do you react to it? And I like to think of it as resilience, right? How can you prepare your body to be able to handle it? And so, one of the biggest ways to do that is work-life balance. So, for example, we have a rule in our household. When I get home, device goes away. We have dinner time as a family, no devices, and work is done. And I have a very clear off time. You have to be able to turn off work. Right. To be able to enjoy your family, enjoy the time with your kids, be present and be engaged, and not be trying to. We cannot multitask. People say, I can multitask. Other people can't. I can't.
Not well.
BS, you cannot. Right. No one can do it well. You think you are. You're stressing your system, and you're accomplishing 2 things half as poorly as you could.
You're shortchanging something.
You are.
And usually it's your family. For us,
you are. Right. Yeah. So set a time when you are going to decide I'm done working now. The day has to end work-wise, and I now have to commit to my family, my wife, my husband, my kids. And when you do that, you now can focus your attention, which is going to reduce stress. What I love to do, and I've done this a lot for many years, I've talked about this, on my way home from work, I will stop in my car, and I'm in a parking lot, doesn't matter where you are, I'll park the car, and I'll turn on Headspace.
Oh, nice.
Okay, Headspace. There are other ones, Calm. There are a lot of other apps on your phone,
right.
and what they are, they're simply guided meditation. Okay, and now I've gotten to the point now where I can meditate without an app. But for those of people who are listening who maybe aren't comfortable, who aren't used to meditating, think it's woo. I used to think it's woo nonsense. There's such power. There's such scientific evidence behind how meditation actually changes genetic expression.
Really?
It changes the way our body works.
That I didn't know. I knew about neuroplasticity.
There's clear science. Yeah, clear science to it. And so the power of it is unmistakable. And so what I like to recommend is you're on your way home, get somewhere where you can parking lot somewhere, and simply turn on Headspace.
Don't do it while driving.
Not while driving. Park somewhere in a parking lot on the way home, and just spend 10 minutes with your eyes closed meditating.
Yeah, right.
And it's so powerful. It's grounding. It's calming. You walk home. You walk in the door, and now you're ready to be there with your family.
Right.
That's one thing. Next is, again, prioritizing sleep, like we just talked about.
Right.
The other thing is, I love to play tennis. That's the sport that I really get the most joy. I love snow skiing as well. I love to go out golfing with my son, although I like to watch him golf because I'm a hack.
How old is he now?
He's 12 now, and he's a superstar.
Is he your oldest?
He's my oldest, yeah.
I remember when you were expecting.
That's right,
It seems like yesterday,
Yeah.
Doc. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you were going to say that.
Amazing, yeah. So the key point here is, what do you love to do, and are you actually scheduling time to do it, or does it get crowded out because you're so stressed and so busy doing other stuff?
Right.
It is such an incredibly stress-relieving activity to just do what you love doing.
Right.
So what is it? Is it cycling? Is it going for a run? Is it playing tennis? Is it going surfing? What is that? And are you actually being intentional about scheduling it in your daily life? And maybe you can't do it every day.
Sure.
But you have to create that consistency and find time to enjoy what you love, because days, weeks, months go by, you don't do any of that stuff, and that's what drives stress as well.
Like you said, you have to prioritize it, which I have a hard time doing, but I'm learning. That's why we're here. I'm learning about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
We're all learning. We're continually learning.
It really is, and it's kind of how I got here. Is about 4 years ago. I started working with you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Dr. Gapin's Institute towards the end here, but. I didn't know all this stuff, so I started to learn it and teach myself nutrition, and I started talking to my patients about it and writing stuff down and copying it for them, and then I'm learning more and more and more, and it's the more I learn, the more I realize there's just that much more to learn, which is fun. I mean, we as physicians kind of have a lifetime of learning, and it's. But then to institute it is where I'm needing a little help. So we'll talk some more later. Okay. Well, I go to my doctor, and none of this stuff gets talked about.
Right.
So I don't want to overstate it and say our healthcare system's broken, but it's certainly not optimal. It's certainly not addressing most of what we've just talked about. What do you think are some of the biggest flaws of our system? And then that's a whole other episode of how we fix them. But what are some of the biggest flaws you find in our healthcare system in this country or in the West?
Yeah, and you're spot on that they teach us none of this stuff. So we just talked a lot about nutrition. We talked about stress. We talked about sleep.
Right.
And we talked about a little bit of gut health already, and some blood sugar stuff. We talked about a lot of stuff already. Right. None of that's taught in medical school.
None.
So everything I do now was self-taught, going through courses, certifications, going through programs and training on this new world of precision medicine called longevity medicine, called optimization of really taking control, and very different approach. So, when we went through medical training, it is, I believe, very big pharma driven.
Big pharma,
right? And I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'll tell you, we're taught basic science, and first year medical school, we're taught, oh, that's the drug to treat that.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Again, what's wrong with you? This is the pill you take, and it is big pharma driven, and I agree. It's not a conspiracy. I think more and more the public's becoming aware of exactly. And good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, the whole vaccine thing that just took place 5 years ago is a great example of that. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
Pharma. We've mentioned before to our audience that if you're looking at a study, who funded it?
Yep.
Because that's a really big a big one to know.
Yeah.
Who funded it? Anything else comes to mind that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, the other thing I'll add to that great
please.
point, Dave, is that what's interesting that the public doesn't recognize is for every study that's published that's out there, there are probably 10 studies that didn't show what they wanted to show that just don't get published, and so therefore you only see what they want you to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, so very
Doctor
powerful.
named Ansel Keys comes to mind, and we're going to get into that. That's the whole cholesterol beginnings of things. But cherry pick what you want.
Absolutely.
That's it.
So the other part of it is, you know, I used to say our healthcare system is broken. That was kind of a talking point for me early on in my transition. But now I recognize it's not actually. The system is delivering exactly what it's built to give.
This is true.
Right? It's built to simply wait until there's a problem.
Right.
And then treat it with, you know, use your diagnostic, your basic rudimentary diagnostic tools like CAT scan and some basic blood tests, and then here is the tool to treat it, typically a pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
We're not taught, doctors aren't taught, it's never emphasized anything other than that type of approach to treating chronic disease. And so what if we can actually prevent chronic disease?
Which we can in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I believe that's a big problem. The other part of it is I believe that it is very generic. It's very one size fits all.
Yes.
It's very focused on this is the way to do it. When in reality, everyone's different.
Exactly.
Right? Our genetics are different. Our bodies are different. Our metabolism, everything is different. And so, you know, example, diet, for example. Diet, nutrition.
Right.
Keto diet is not necessarily appropriate for most people.
Right.
Okay? Some people may, based on their genes, based on how their body works, may do better with paleo or Mediterranean, or maybe plant-based may be better.
Right.
Or carnivore may be right for some people for short periods of time. But so the key here is that there's not one perfect solution for everybody.
Correct.
Especially when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to supplementation, when it comes to fitness programming. And so I think that's one of the big flaws we have as well, where it's basically just, hey, go diet and exercise. What does that mean? Well, just don't eat any carbs.
Right.
Or go get on a treadmill for an hour a day. When in fact there's a lot more nuance to it that I think gets lost.
Right. No, that's all great stuff, and I'm smiling because you're bringing up a lot of points that we keep hitting on, and so we kind of touched on this a little bit with pharma. Profit-driven medicine, I think, has worsened the chronic health epidemic, and I don't know what the answer is to that. You need companies to make money to develop drugs and other treatment options. But so we've got all these different parts. We've got a chronic health epidemic. We've got our lifestyle choices. We've got the system failure. I mean, they're so interconnected. Yeah. And I think what advice would you give to our audience? How can they weed through the noise? Yeah. If it can be summarized in a short little succinct.
I think the public needs to wake up and start to take, and it's a very overused phrase, but take control of their health.
Yes.
And I know that sounds cliche, but what that really means is your primary care doctor, your internist, your family practice doctor, they are there to basically identify a problem, a disease, often when it's too late. Right. And when they do find that problem, the answer is typically, here's the drug, here's your statin, here's your Synthroid, here's your drug, and that's it, right? And so, you're the great example. We were talking about how, doctors will use an MRI to try to find the problem, and if nothing's shown in MRI, no, you're fine. There's so much more to it than that.
Exactly.
And so I think the public needs to wake up. They need to recognize that no one's going to look out for them but themselves, right? They need to start making better decisions, better choices in a daily life, and that also requires that they're a little more intentional, and that they're a little more consistent, committed to themselves, and that gets into the whole conversation around how do you establish habits, and which is another fun conversation that no doctor ever talks about, is how do you establish consistency in your daily life.
Right. And you're kind of tying into the profit-driven medicine. The system is evolved in such a manner that a doctor can't even pay his overhead if he spent the time he needs to spend with a patient to go through all this stuff.
Yep.
And again, that's a complex answer. I don't know. I'm not saying I even have the answer to it, but well, good. So how about?
I want to double click on that for a second. What a great point.
Yeah, right.
When I was in my urology practice,
okay,
I would have sometimes 55, 60 patients in a day.
Right.
Like, how do you do that? I would have 10-minute slots per patient.
Right.
No lunch. Go straight through lunch. 10-minute slots. And I would realistically have about 6 minutes with each patient, because there's, the pleasantries in the beginning, the nursing time at the end, get them their refills.
Right.
6 minutes.
What are you going to do in 6 minutes?
What the hell can you do?
Right? Not much.
Not much.
Certainly not enough time to get into any of this.
No.
So, and I think that I know people are aware of this now, and they're hungry for it.
Yeah.
And that's why practices like yours are booming, and hopefully the podcast will bring this information to people.
Yeah.
And and again, I know some of this overlaps. Health optimization, I think I like that. That's a good way to put this. And how does this overlap with allopathic or osteopathic medicine? I mean, some of it's wildly separate and different, but what is there? I guess I want to give people some positives. That the regular doctor is doing some of this, or is there really not much overlap at all?
Yeah, I think there is some overlap. The distinction is, allopathic medicine, we are trained in traditional medicine how to assess a patient, right? They have a chief complaint. I have abdominal pain, for example, right? And based on that diagnosis, or based on that chief complaint, rather, you have certain questions you ask to understand, but how long has it been hurting? Where does it hurt? What makes it better? What makes it worse? And you go through the question to further identify what caused that problem, or what further testing we need to do, right?
Right.
And then you do a physical exam, and then you'll order some blood tests, maybe some imaging, and then you'll come up with a diagnosis, and then here's the treatment, right? That's all around fixing a problem. That's all around fixing a diagnosis, a chief complaint they've come in with. They have abdominal pain. Right. Right?
Why?
Well, exactly. Right. And so what if, instead of waiting until they come to you with abdominal pain, we can actually focus on eating the right foods, improving our sleep quality, fixing our gut health, mitigating stress, improving our fitness level, clearing toxins in our environment, doing all these things, optimizing the system so that it can work at a high level.
Right.
Imagine how much chronic disease we would actually prevent.
That'd be awesome.
Right.
The overwhelming majority of it.
Right.
I follow Dr. Mark Hyman quite a bit, talk about functional medicine. I'm so happy for him. I don't want to sound cheesy. For 30 years, the guy's been vilified. You're a quack, and now it's, wait a minute, you've been right this whole time.
Yeah.
But he professes type 2 diabetes. 70% of people can be cured diet alone.
Absolutely.
And when I say diet, I don't mean like calorie restriction and be on no, just eating the right things. And that's a mind-blowing statistic. So someone asked me, well, what's the best treatment for type 2 diabetes? Easy. Don't get it. I mean, I'm being a little sarcastic, but right? Just don't get it.
Sure.
And you can prevent getting it.
Yeah.
If that was grammatically correct. But all right, good deal. All right, this is a ton. And my head's spinning a little bit. I'm sure other people's is spinning. What would be the first step? Like, okay, I got to do something.
Yeah.
What would be the first best thing I could do?
Yeah, get tested.
First thing I
get
could do?
tested.
Okay.
So
genetic testing.
Without question, I would say get tested. Now, what does that mean?
Right.
So I look at it in different categories. First, there's the blood testing, right? And when you go to your regular medical doctor, and I'm not here to bash primary care, but they're trying. They have a good intention. There's no ill will here.
Right.
But it's based on what we're taught. And it's taught to check basic chemistries, check a CBC, liver function tests, some basic labs, and tell you, they look fine. Because you're not having a heart attack, you're not having a stroke, you're not having a major problem, emergency, crisis. So those blood labs in general are going to be okay for the most part, right? Unless there's a major problem. Instead, what I look at are better markers, deeper markers to really understand how well your body is working. Okay, and I look at 5 general blood test categories. One is cardiovascular, one is hormones, one is inflammation, one is blood sugar control or metabolic health, and one's nutrients. Okay, and I take a deeper dive into each of those categories to get a better assessment. I'll give you a couple examples to drive my point home here. So one's hormones. I'm a big advocate for men's health. That's really been my niche since the beginning. And testosterone is the common hormone guys talk about, right? But in fact, did you know that total testosterone is actually a fairly worthless blood test? Okay, and people are like, wait, what? And they're rewinding. Wait, is that I'll plant my flag in the ground. It's a worthless blood test. I'll tell you why.
Total testosterone.
Total testosterone doesn't help you, because most testosterone is actually bound to proteins in the bloodstream. Okay, and it's not useful. It's not effective. So for testosterone to have any benefit, for it to help you with energy, building muscle, cognitive function, mood, metabolism, bone health, cardiovascular health, longevity, all these incredible benefits of optimizing your testosterone has to get actually into a cell. Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Whether it's a liver cell, whether it's a muscle cell, whatever cell it's getting into has to go through the cell membrane and then goes, it attaches to an androgen receptor, it's called, which brings it to the nucleus, which is where all the DNA is. It affects DNA transcription and protein synthesis occurs, and magic happens. Okay, that's all the physiology behind it. Testosterone has to get into a cell. 99% of testosterone is bound to proteins in the blood, right?
Can't get in the cell.
Can't get in the cell.
Does.
And when it can't get in the cell, guess what happens?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
And so the only testosterone that actually matters, the only testosterone that gives you any biologic benefit, impact, is free testosterone. Right?
Okay.
90% of doctors don't even look at it, don't even check it.
Gosh.
And they'll look at your total testosterone, and we'll get to the ranges in a second, reference range. And they'll look and say, oh, yeah, based on that, you're fine. Well, I say, bullshit, you're not fine because you're not even looking at the right lab.
Oh, my gosh. Isn't that crazy?
Right? The other problem with this is that studies have shown, 3 massive longitudinal 20-year studies have shown that testosterone levels, free testosterone specifically, worldwide, one in the U.S. study here, study in Sweden and Finland, all 3 studies showed that free testosterone levels are down by almost 50% over 20 years.
Oh, my God.
Worldwide.
Endocrine disruptors.
Endocrine disruptors, we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And so when you look at your LabCorp Quest lab test,
right,
and they've done total testosterone, again, wrong test,
right,
and they're looking at the reference range, that reference range is based on the population.
Okay.
It's based on the Travison 2017 study. You can look at the references on the lab. You'll see it there.
Right.
And that study is simply looking at what's the average of the population.
And is that 200, 800, 200,000?
It'll say like 296 up to 824. Some
Okay.
ridiculously wide range. But again, that range
means nothing.
Is because it's half what it was 20 years ago.
That's crazy.
And so not only are they looking at the wrong lab test, but looking at the wrong range as well.
Right.
So great example of you got to look at the right numbers. And so that's just one example of in hormones, cardiovascular health. Doctors look at what? Total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, triglycerides.
Correct.
Right? And tell you, oh my gosh, you need a statin. Right? But in fact, labs like ApoB, which is apolipoprotein B, is the single most important marker when it comes to lipids, because it's actually looking at the particle count, not the particle how much cholesterol is inside those particles, right? So,
and ApoB is what takes the LDL around and puts it into.
So,
is that right?
So, well, cholesterol is neither good nor bad. Cholesterol your body needs, right?
It has to have it. In fact, I'm sorry. Post this week. We're posting an episode on cholesterol.
Perfect.
Just some basic stuff with Dr. Gina Paz.
Awesome. Amazing.
Doctor in town.
Great.
Yeah.
But the key, and I like to make this simple for the audience. So cholesterol is like fat, right? And bloodstream is water. Fat and water don't mix. And so it has to be carried around your body somehow. It has to be transported. In little, I call them submarines.
Okay. I like that.
Lipoproteins are little submarines. Yeah, okay. Right. LDL is a submarine. HDL is a submarine. These are just simply carriers, transporters of cholesterol. Right. When you get your LDL cholesterol checked, it's LDL-C. That's actually the concentration of cholesterol within those particles. How much cholesterol is in the particles? Okay, that's all that is. Okay. What's actually more important are how many how many submarine particles do you have? And so ApoB is measuring how many submarines do you have, not how much cholesterol is inside those submarines.
Gotcha.
Okay, and that's what's much more predictive of risk. The Framingham study you referenced here is what showed us that the number of particles, the number of submarines, is much more predictive of cardiovascular risk than how much cholesterol is inside those submarines or particles. And so that's why LDLP or LDL particle count or number and ApoB are magnitude difference in value than LDL-C. It's another example of how doctors are still looking at the wrong labs.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I have spoken to some docs who say that unless you, because sometimes people come in and want all these tests done, and we're over testing, and then oh my gosh, we found something.
Yeah.
And the cholesterol, some advocate that unless you've got risk factors, Dad died at 48, you don't necessarily need to dial all the way down on those. So I don't know, but. I mean, the basic panels may not be enough if you have reason to think otherwise.
So you're right. There's this massive battle brewing online, on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, and all these influencers are arguing over whether LDL matters or not. And there's this carnivore keto world over here, and then there's the Thomas Dayspring genius when it comes to lipids over here, and the other side talking about how important are lipids and cholesterol.
Right.
I think a fair way to put perspective on it without trying to bastardize either side or spin it in any way is we know that cardiovascular disease is triggered by lipids. We know that hormone disruption. We know that low testosterone directly correlates with cardiovascular disease without question. Okay, about 30% increased risk in men and women with low T. We know the systemic inflammation. When you think about the process of atherosclerosis, the process of plaque formation, that lipid particle, that cholesterol gets deposited in the lining of the blood vessel. It causes an inflammatory cascade, that leads to macrophages coming in, foam cell creation, ultimately oxidation, and ultimately plaque forming over the long term, right? And so that whole process, and Peter T has been wonderful at really clarifying that for the public to easily understand. But the key here is inflammation drives that process.
Everything, right?
Okay. Yeah. And then finally, metabolic health, blood sugar control directly affects that as well. So I look at it as lipids matter. For some people, maybe more than others. Okay, to be fair. Inflammation, hormones, blood sugar control, they all affect cardiovascular disease to some extent. So why not try to optimize all of them, knowing that they could all be potential risk factors?
Yeah. That makes great sense.
And you can do it without a statin.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I had shared before, I was on a statin, 17 years, and I stopped. And this is for me. This isn't advice for everybody else. I take lemongrass, red yeast rice, and bergamot. My pain was fine.
There you go.
One was just barely over high normal.
Yeah.
But I also significantly changed my diet. You know, we are big whole food eaters.
There you go.
And so how much was each? Who knows?
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking with it. Well, this has been awesome, Dr. Gapin. I really appreciate you coming on. Man, we hit on so many subjects that they themselves could be an entire episode. And we try to keep it about this time frame so it's easily watchable. But I can't thank you enough, really. I know how busy you are. And I got a ton out of this. So for those of you who are interested, Dr. Gapin, his institute's called the Gapin, it's just GapinInstitute.com. We'll have it listed in the description as well as on the website. So there'll be a link there. I would highly recommend you check him out. Like I said, I've worked with him, and we'll be working with him some more here in the future. But a lot of good stuff. I think we have just really scratched the surface. But again, thank you so much to our audience. Thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know I asked before, hit that subscribe button, please. It just helps us grow. And we'll see you next time on Unprocessed Sugar. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Dr. David Sugar, a doctor here in Florida. And thank you for joining us on our podcast. A quick note, this is for educational and general information purposes only. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a doctor-patient relationship. And please consult with your own healthcare provider before making any changes to your own care. If you are having a medical emergency, please call 911 or your local emergency number. Any items, tests, medications that we talk about or discuss are for information purposes only and are not an endorsement. Once again, thank you for joining us, and please see the website for the full disclosure and waiver. Thank you very much.